Yo, book nerds! I finished reading Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I actually finished this a while ago, but some things in life kept me from recording this video. So this has been kind of a long time coming, but better late than never, right? So I really enjoyed this story. I feel like I enjoyed the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes a little more than Sunrise on the Reaping, but I did really enjoy this book. I enjoyed getting Hamish's perspective and understanding what went into who he becomes in the original trilogy. So this book takes place 40 years after the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. So President Snow is 58 years old. Hamish is 16. It is the 50th Hunger Games. It's the second quarter quell, which means that something special happens, and twice as many tributes are in these games as normal. So there's 48 instead of 24. This book had lots of nods and Easter eggs to the original trilogy and also to the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I feel like you don't necessarily need to read the original trilogy first to get something out of this book, but I do think you should read the other prequel. You should read the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes before Sunrise on the Reaping, because there's so much like tied in, so many things that are just hinted at, and if you don't have the other prequel under your belt, you're gonna miss a lot of it or not understand it, and it becomes really important for the plot of this story. Whereas the references to the original trilogy are not necessary to the plot of the story. You don't have to understand those Easter eggs. Another reason I enjoyed this was because there were a lot of things that reminded me of other literature. You know, I'm a nerd for literature behind the literature. I don't know if Collins was influenced by 1984 by George Orwell, but there were things in this book that really made me think of that novel, like the slogans on the Capitol posters. There's some on like page 15, so I don't feel like this is spoilery at all, but like there are posters that say things like no peace, no bread, no peace, no security, no peacekeepers, no peace, no capital, no peace. And it reminds me of all the slogans from Orwell's 1984. In 1984, the slogans are war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. So like it just reminded me a lot of that and made me kind of nerd out a little bit. There is a definite clear nod to Edgar Allan Poe in this story. Hamish's girlfriend is named Lenore, and there is a lot going on with The Raven poem by Edgar Allan Poe. So that was really interesting to me. I read that poem I don't know how many times, and like it made my little English teacher heart nerd out, and there's just so much I could talk about with that. But it's another sign for me that I am supposed to read Edgar Allan Poe this year. Like I have a collection of his works that I haven't read yet, and there have been lots of signs that I am supposed to read that this year. So this was just another one. This book was unique in the fact that we get to see a lot of the manipulation that the Capitol does. You see a lot of manipulation around the games, around the reaping, and you just get to see like how corrupt things are and how the Capitol, if they want one image projected, like that is what will be projected, and everything else doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much they have to like twist the truth or blatantly lie. Like if they have a narrative, they're gonna make that narrative known, and everything else does not matter. The truth does not matter to the Capitol. That was interesting. I want to get into some spoilery talk So just know that like I really did enjoy this, and I think it's a great addition to the original trilogy. I do think you need to read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes to get the full experience of this novel though. So if you don't want to know more than that, I just say read it, check it out for yourself, make your own decision on that. I thought it was great getting to see a deeper side of Haymitch and learn what happened to make him the person he is in the original trilogy. Alright, so spoiler alert if you don't want to know more, but I need to talk in depth on some things. So let's get into it. Again, talking about the capital rigging things and having their own narrative, like some examples of the capital rigging things, like with the reaping, they pull somebody else's name out of the jar besides Haymitch, and that kid tries to run and they shoot him, and then Haymitch gets involved with the peacekeepers and they punish Haymitch by rigging it so that his name is the one pulled out of the jar in place of the boy that was shot. So like, and the Capitol doesn't air any of this. It's all edited out before it gets aired. So you just think, oh, Haymitch's name was drawn right out of the jar. So like, they don't care about the truth. And same with once Haymitch is in the Capitol, like everything goes haywire on the parade and bad things happen. I'm not going to get too in depth, but like they have a cover story for that, and one of the tributes dies at the parade, and that all gets taken care of. They find like a body double for her and brainwash her and torture her until she thinks she is the original tribute, and they dress her up like her, and like they don't care about the truth, they just care about having a good image. Good image. There is a quote I want to talk about that's like halfway through the book when Haymitch is talking with some of his like prep team. Effie from the original trilogy is part of his like prep team, and she talks about something with her past that like they don't really want to talk about, like it was bad, it's hard being a trinket. And then someone else on the team like talks about how one of his relatives was a rebel sympathizer, and so like they're talking about these bad things that their ancestors did that were against the Capitol, and one of the prep teams says, you don't pick your ancestors, and like kind of brushes it off. But I think that the you don't pick your ancestors is interesting because the whole point of the games is to punish children for what their ancestors did against the Capitol. And so it's just hypocrisy at its finest because the prep team like totally supports the games. And so it's that contrast between what's right and wrong, and like they just refuse to acknowledge their hypocrisy. There's another line that reminds me of how things were for slaves in the US. They're talking about a peacekeeper who has a child with someone who's district. Once in a blue moon, a seam girl falls for a peacekeeper and ends up with a baby, resulting in plenty of social disapproval in 12 as well. But there's never any talk of the kid going to the Capitol. Most are simply disowned by the father, who's then shipped off to another district. And that reminded me so much of like how in the US, when there was slavery, the slave owners would rape their slaves and have children with them, but those children were never like part of the family. They were slaves still, and the owners did not care about them. That parallel just stuck out to me. The districts are the slaves of the Capitol for sure. This book has a lot of gruesome things in it, and this book did actually make me cry. Like that is hard to do, so that tells you a lot. Like I don't cry like ever for books. I think only one other time have I ever actually shed tears for a book. Things will make me sad when I'm reading, but like to actually get me to shed tears is like rare. And I shed tears when Ampert died in the arena. I knew he would have to die, but I did not expect the way Ampert dies. It just was so gruesome and like something out of a horror novel. And I mean, I was also reading it at like 1 a.m. because I had to know what was going to happen. And that could have played into me being a little more emotional because I was tired. But I was just like shocked by the gruesomeness of some of the scenes in this book. But I knew Ampert would have to die because Haymitch obviously goes on to be in the original trilogy. So I knew Haymitch would win. And I think that that is a testament to how good the writing is in this book, because you know Haymitch has to live, but there are still so many twists and turns, and you care about the characters, and like you're still like hurt when they die, even though you know that it's coming, you know it's gonna happen. But I never felt like Collins was using the deaths just for shock value. I never felt like the gruesomeness was just there to shock you. Like, it was there to illustrate how horrible the Capitol is. I think this book also avoids a trope that is so easy to fall into with YA novels. There is a girl, Maisley, in the story. She is one of the two girl tributes from 12. And Haymitch and Maisley form this bond. And Haymitch, like I said, has a girlfriend named Lenore. So it could have been so easy to have a love triangle in this story. But Maisley and Haymitch develop this bond that is like siblings. They care about each other like siblings, and I really like that Collins did that and didn't have a love triangle. I was really worried that she was going to, and I was not into that. So I really liked that they cared about each other, but it was completely platonic, and Haymitch like didn't cheat on Lenore or fall for Maisley. But there's even a quote about the way that they care about each other, which resonated with me. And it says that Haymitch loves her like a sister, and it says, "A sister is someone you fight with and fight for, tooth and nail." And I don't have a sister, but I have brothers, and yes, definitely, like, I, growing up, fought with my brothers like crazy, like you do, but I would fight for them, and I would go to war for my brothers. Like, that is how siblings love, and I really liked that. There is a scene in here where some game makers get killed in the arena, and I think that that scene is another like reason why you should read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes first, because that scene is kind of like a throwback to in The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, where Snow is in the arena and the tributes are trying to kill him. And it shows, like, in that book, the argument is that people are barbaric and they will kill anyone even if it doesn't like actually benefit them, because killing Snow would not have benefited the tributes in that scenario. But in here, like, you get to see that scene from the side of the tributes, and they kill the game makers, and they aren't gonna get anything out of it. They actually will get punished for it, and it's just very interesting to see both sides of that argument in these two books. As the games go on and it gets down to the final three, I found it interesting that there is a scene where the three remaining tributes are all together and no one's killing each other. They're all in or under this tree. They have this like unspoken truce, and I found it interesting because it really gave me like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of vibes. Like, they're all each other's enemy, but the Capitol is their true enemy. So they if they weren't fighting for their lives, like, they would be all on the same side. They all hate the Capitol, and so like that momentary truce between them, it was very telling and very strong. Like I said, we knew Haymitch had to win, so like the fact that he's in the final three, like, is expected, like, he's gonna win the games. He does win the games, and at the end, there is more that makes me think about Orwell's novel 1984. You find out the arena is shaped like an eye, and Big Brother is always watching you, and the Capitol is always watching you. And there's also like a recap of the games, and Haymitch is watching this recap, and it's not what happened. Like, the game makers are again controlling the narrative, and they aren't telling the public what really happened, because Haymitch has been doing things that, like, he's been guilty of, like, sabotaging the games, and none of that gets shown. None of their, like, collusion and attempts to overthrow the games and beat the Capitol are shown, and the games just seem normal. And it reminded me of in 1984, where, like, people are told one thing, like, oh, this is our enemy, and then the next day, literally the next day, oh, they're not our enemy, they're our allies. And they will literally rewrite history. And, like, Haymitch is like, do you expect me to, like, believe this, that this is what happened? Like, this isn't what happened. They just expect me to go along with it and forget what truly happened. Like, in both stories, like, truth does not exist, and people just overlook the facts and just believe what they see or what they're told by the government. Nobody questions things the government says, even when it's definitely contradictory to things they know happened. Like I said, I have read the original trilogy, and apparently Haymitch talks about his games in the original trilogy. I don't remember what he said about his games in the original trilogy, so, like, I went into this only knowing that he won. I don't remember any specifics about the games. So and I am currently reading The Hunger Games right now. I'm rereading it, but I haven't gotten to wherever Haymitch talks about it. So, like, I don't remember what was said, and I didn't look it up. Some of this may be obvious if you know what he said or remember what he said, like, but I didn't, so I don't know if, like, I should have already known some of the things that would happen after he won the games or not. I feel like I'm rambling, but do you get what I'm saying? What happens after he won the games, and because of all the stuff he did that the government covered up in the games, all of his sabotage and stuff, the government decides, like, that he needs to be punished, so they attack his family. And I don't know if that is talked about in the original trilogy or not, but I didn't remember it if it was. I had a feeling that that was going to happen from the beginning of this book. I just had a feeling that that's why Haymitch would go on to become a drunk, because something terrible had to have happened to him in addition to the games. Like, I just had this feeling that his family was gonna be hurt, and I was right. I just didn't expect it to be so gruesome. The fact that he watches his family burn alive and he watches his girlfriend be poisoned to death, like, it just was so heartbreaking, even though I knew something was gonna happen. They were so brutal, and I just can't imagine watching that. And even though I knew it was coming, and even though I called it, like, it was still so sad. It still got to me, and that is another, like, testament to how strong this writing is. I definitely feel like reading this story as an adult instead of as a teenager, like, this is geared towards young adults, towards teenagers. Like, I feel like I have a different perspective of it, but I still really enjoyed it, and I felt like the writing was really strong. And so, like, as an adult, I definitely enjoyed myself. Enjoyed seems like a bad word, but you know what I mean. Like, the writing didn't feel like it wasn't elementary for me, like, you know what I mean. But I do feel like reading it now as an adult versus when I was a kid it's different. Like, I don't really care about the romances, the teenage romances, but I also just, like, imagine my own children in this situation. Like, I'm a parent and a step parent, and, like, my 14-year-old is the age of some of the kids that are in the arena. And like, I can't imagine, like, I just can't imagine my 14-year-old fighting to the death. And I also can't imagine being a parent and just letting the government take my 14-year-old. Like, I would die defending my kids, and then they'd still get taken by the government. Like, but I would never, ever allow it. Like, how brainwashed, how tormented and scared these parents must be to just surrender their children is like beyond my comprehension. I think if you haven't read the original trilogy, you maybe should skip reading the epilogue in this story, because the epilogue talks about events that happen after the original trilogy, so it may spoil some things for you. If you have read the original trilogy, then go ahead and read the epilogue for sure, but I guess use your own judgment. I felt the epilogue was unnecessary. I really didn't like the epilogue, to be honest. I felt like it kind of took away from the hard ending, the tragic ending that we got in this story, and I felt like it would have been more powerful to end there. But again, I do realize that this is for children, and maybe Collins didn't want to end on such a sad, horrible note, which fair, okay, fair. But as an adult, I feel like it would have been stronger to end the book with the tragic ending of Haymitch just spiraling after losing his girlfriend and losing his family. And when you think about it, like, you should also have known Haymitch was gonna lose his family if you have ever read The Raven, and you know that the narrator of The Raven is lamenting losing Lenore, and it's definite foreshadowing to Haymitch losing Lenore. And those words from that poem, the words from the whole poem are repeated so often through this story, like it should kind of beat you over the head that Lenore isn't gonna make it. But I think that the epilogue shouldn't have been there. I feel like it should have ended with the tragic ending, and then the original trilogy is what would redeem Haymitch and give him the happy ending. But I'm not the author, so I didn't get to decide that. But that's my 2 cents. Anyway, overall, I did love this. I really enjoyed getting Haymitch's story fleshed out and like getting to see everything that happened. And I thought that the writing was intricate and interesting, and it just kept me reading. I still stand by my statement that I think I got into The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes more than this book, but they both were very good. So if you haven't read this, I definitely encourage you. I picked it up because like I was feeling left out. I've been seeing so many people online reading it, and you know, that FOMO, I was definitely missing out and not enjoying it. So like I had to read it so I could be in on the conversation. I'm so glad that I have, and I'm glad that I'm finally getting this video out to you all. So read it if you haven't. I have, like I said, been rereading The Hunger Games. I am almost done with this, so you can expect a review for The Hunger Games to be coming very soon. I have less than 100 pages left, so that'll be good too. Anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for talking books with me.